Welcome to Metallian website, Jona. Thanks a lot
you.
for taking the time for this interview. First of all, how have you been? How has the band considering this phase, a pandemic and lineup changes during these crazy times?
Well, it's been quite turbulent to be sure. It's been, for me personally, I've had a lot of stuff to do recording albums in the studio, so I've been staying busy actually. But it's kind of been sucking to not be able to go on tour. And also, yeah, we had the singer swap, and that was kind of brutal as well. But it turned out really cool now, so everything is back on track basically.
Yeah, well. You're releasing a new album on August 5th, so Force Majeure. So why did you decide to make a new album instead of promoting more H.E.A.T 2, which I consider one of your best records until today? So because the pandemic did not allow you to go on tour, and I think many fans were expecting to listen to those songs at your concerts. In addition, as a band, how has your experience of making another record in all this uncertainty caused by the pandemic?
So yeah, the best way to get Kenny back in the band really was to start writing music, because that's what it's all about. I mean, we're doing music here, so that was the first thing was to, well, we have some time. We don't know when the pandemic is gonna end, so let's just start making music. Let's work on a new album. And we got a new record contract as well. And, everything was the sights were set on making a new album and just get Kenny back in the band, back in the gang as well, But yeah, it was, it's been crazy times to be sure.
Yeah. What do you?
Yeah, I mean, we are playing some. I think we're playing at least 3 or 4 tracks from H.E.A.T 2, and we're gonna keep playing those. I mean, Kenny do them very well. We're playing Rise, Dangerous Ground, One by One, Rock Your Body. There's quite a bit of H.E.A.T 2 on the set list at the moment.
Okay. So what do you call the album Force Majeure? What is the idea behind this name?
So the word force had been with us throughout the whole album making process, and we call Kenny Force, Mr. Force, because he's so high energy, So we got to give him a nickname. So he's called H.E.A.T Force in my cell phone as well. And so just the word force was something that was with us. And so we actually thought about calling the album just Force, but then it was Force Majeure. It's ooh, that's a major force, it's a big force. And also it kind of reflects to the pandemic and everything and the stuff we've been going through with the singer change. So it was kind of fitting title for it, really.
Okay. The singles, again, as usually, were awesome. Oh, and I love Back to the Rim. I love Hollywood. I love the other one. So for me, a Back to the Rim is a great way to start an album. So how do you choose the singles and order that the songs in an album?
It's super hard, especially when you think you've made an album that has a lot of potential singles, So it's kind of hard. We come up with the tracks that we in the band think these are potential singles. Then we talk to the record company and see what they say, because it's always good to get some external input and the management and stuff like that, And that's how we choose it. But you kind of get a feel for what songs are the best, what we like and what we think people are gonna like. And yeah, so in this day and age, I think singles are kind of important, because you do a couple of them, maybe 3 or 4 singles before releasing an album, because of the streaming and how everything looks these days. So I mean, it's kind of hard to choose, but we try to get advice from record company, friends, family, stuff like that, ourselves.
Okay. We also have lineup changes for this record because Kenny's back. Yep. So for the fans that love the first 2 albums, that was great. What was a great news. So, but all of us enjoy our albums. It was kind of sad to see Eric leaving the band. So how did it happen? How did you deal with these new line changes, and how was the experience of working with Kenny again, considering that time goes by and as a person maybe he changed?
Yeah, I mean, Kenny has definitely changed quite a bit. I think he's the same person, but with different goals, you know, in life and what he want to achieve. Really, it feels like he had a bit of a down period, sort of a depression when he left the band, you know. So it was just, you can kind of tell he was drifting away. But now he's like back on track. He has so much energy to give and everything. But yeah, it was kind of hard to to depart with Eric. He's a great friend. He still is, you know, and it sucked that it has to come to this, you know. But I think he ultimately felt he wanted to prioritize his time differently, try other stuff out. You know, he's one of those entrepreneurs, like through and through. He just want to do stuff and do startups, create stuff, blah, blah, blah. Stuff has to happen all the time. And I guess eventually he kind of felt that he was not as big as he had expected or whatever, you know, and also he didn't want to tour that much, be away from, you know, doing other stuff and family. And so he decided to leave ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And,
okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Now H.E.A.T looks like a big family because you had some line changes, but in the end, except for Eric, you are all four and band members. So how is the relationship between all you members and ex members?
It's good. I don't really talk to Eric Rivers that much anymore. I mean, we used to hang out all the time, but we kind of drifted apart, I guess. We text each other every now and then and say hi, you know. But and with Eric Grunwald, we talk pretty often. Like we used to talk every day, and we still talk sometimes, like maybe 2 times a week, you know. And we also have this other project we've been doing by New Horizon together, so we definitely stay in touch. But it's kind of cool to you know, keep it in the family, sort of like when because Dave was out of the band for 2 years, then he got back, and then Eric decided to leave, and then Kenny came back. It's been working out pretty well for us in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So for me, Kenny sounds great in whole album because we have the opportunity to hear whole album. So this is not a surprise for ones that enjoy the first 2 albums. So I was talking with a friend about this. So I mean, there are a lot of bands with great singers nowadays, but none of them can get the best from their singers. How was the process of composition in order to get the best from Kenny's voice? Did you start with the vocal melodies or the instrumental parts?
It's differently, but for me, I usually start with the vocal melodies, like when I write music, because I sing as well. And it's like, so I sit with a guitar and you do some chords and you come up with a melody. But usually it's just that the melody and like a line comes to you. You kind of see something and you say, oh, there's a piece of glass. There's a piece of glass. You start to sing because you have fucking Tourette's, you know? And then, oh, this is hooky and this is catchy. Then you record it on voice memo and you kind of label it. And then when you have a writing day, you kind of listen to voice memos and what kind of ideas you have, and you start writing music. But so basically for the songs that I've written and David written, so we write the melodies ourselves, and then Kenny, we know what Kenny can do and how he sounds like when you write, so it's kind of easy for him. And Kenny's a super musical person, you know. He knows music so good, so it's very easy for him to adapt to do his own thing to the melodies that we write, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm also impressed by how H.E.A.T always delivers not only great vocals, but also outstanding instrumental parts as a band in general. So very catchy and melodic, especially with the guitar parts and keys. So I was talking with Jona Tee in a previous interview, and he mentioned something interesting. The way you experience the sound by listening or feeling your instrument when you are playing may be different from what we experience at the end. So how do you work in order to make sure you have the right sounds and melodies that will catch the attention of your fans?
I guess it depends on where you are as well. Like when what stuff you're into at the moment, you know, because if I listen to a lot of progressive metal, which I do at times, then my writing like becomes more influenced with that, and then I might want to use heavier guitars and more keyboard stuff like that, maybe more keyboard solos. And sometimes I'm more into like the 80s stuff, and then I want to have like the big fat brass sounds and, you know, the Roland Juno sounds and like the arpeggios and stuff, which I'm kind of into at the moment, more of the 80s stuff, which I believe and I kind of feel that our fan base likes, like when we are more 80s, really like 80s with a heavier approach, you know. But I guess it's more up to where you are musically at the moment.
Okay. Talking about the song of the album, one of my favorite songs is Demon's Eyes, which is probably one of your heavy songs, faster than what you were used to. So how was the process of compositions for a songs like this?
It was like Kenny had this riff here. You know, he had this, I was like, oh, this sounds like a boss fight from a Nintendo game. That sounds fucking cool, you know. And then we're both big Iron Maiden fans, so we were like, yeah, we should do this. Something like that, you know, kind of Power Slave-ish, New Wobben kind of track. And then we added some like Deep Purple influences. You know, we just had fun writing that one. It was like, it just came to us basically. I think we wrote it just one day. And then we wrote some lyrics after. It was kind of cool. And we added that like cool guitar solo with the breaks and stuff, which is kind of Deep Purple. So yeah, I'm happy you like it. It's a bit of an oddball on the album, and probably the fastest, heaviest track we've ever done. But everyone loved it so much, but we got to have it on the album, you know.
Love to say that this song is like a boss fighting. That's
yeah, it's very much, you know, it's like pew, pew, pew.
Okay, great. Well, so in general, the album is quite diverse. So from hard rock songs, melodic songs, heavy stuff, and even a beautiful power ballad. So I like how somehow most of the songs come with a good vibe. So it's almost impossible not to feel positive when we listen to most of the songs. So how did you manage to achieve these good vibes in such a complicated time?
Actually, you know, when it's a weird thing, but for me personally, when I feel down, you know, then I tend to write happy music. I don't know if it's some sort of therapy thing, but it's like when I feel down, I just want to do like, you know, like major chords, happy melodies, just to kind of get, well, I want to go to that zone. I want to feel better, you know. And when, like, on the other hand, when I'm in the zone, I feel good, I want to write like darker, heavier tracks. It's like, yeah, no, fucking devil stuff, you know. So that's how I work. And I guess some people, like, they want to write sad music when they're sad, but I write sad music when I'm happy. Basically.
That's weird. That's weird. So I know every album is special for you, and for most bands, the last album is always their best effort. So let me ask, what does this album means in H.E.A.T's career? How did the feelings you have and the way you compose change compared to the times when you released H.E.A.T in 2008?
I mean, when we did the first album, we were still like figuring everything out. We were super young, you know, not super young, but we were young. It was, now you have more of a blueprint and kind of the better know how to do stuff and write music, I guess. But for me, I mean, of course, I think H.E.A.T 2 was like, I really like that album too. You know, I think that's one of our best albums. I think this Force Majeure, it's like on a par with H.E.A.T 2. It's like an extension. It's not the same, it's different, but it's still, I think it has the same quality and same punch and, like, you know, soundscape, everything. It sounds big and it sounds modern, but it has this 80s touch that we added to H.E.A.T 2, you know, still. And I think that's probably why I think people like when we go very 80s, you know. People tend to like the first album, Destination, and H.E.A.T, you know, in general.
Okay, okay. So what are your plans after releasing the new album? The new album, is there something special for your 15th anniversary as a band? Maybe live album, DVD that captured this great moment for the band?
Yeah, actually, it's 15-year anniversary. It's this year.
Yes, yes.
Holy fuck. We should have done something in February. We're still a pandemic though. Actually, like 15-year anniversary, we played a show in Stockholm. We sold out. We had like 1,200 people. It was pretty good here in Stockholm. So that was sort of a celebration. But yeah, we're talking about doing like re-releases and remixes of the first two albums. We haven't gotten anywhere yet with it, but it's in like the making. I think we should always focus on making, you know, new stuff and not promote, but like you want to do the stuff you just made is the most fun to do, right? And I think it's not, many people say, oh, you should play old stuff. It's like, you know, when you go to an Iron Maiden concert, right, in the early 2000s, you wanted to hear the 80s stuff, okay? But like when you were in the 80s, like when they just released like Somewhere in Time, you didn't want them to play all Iron Maiden songs. You wanted to play like the latest stuff. And I think we're in that zone now where we should do what we've done, because that's what we like and that's what people like, you know, with H.E.A.T and hopefully like with Force Majeure as well. But yeah, some like re-release stuff will maybe happen. I think so, but I don't know when.
Okay. Well, H.E.A.T is a great band now into the hard rock and heavy metal stuff. So how do you see now the H.E.A.T career from the future? Because you have great albums all the time, you deliver great albums for the time, but at the same time, the artist thinks when continue growing with more albums, sometimes you have afraid to repeat by yourself and not fresh anymore. So how do you see this afraid to repeat by yourself in these next albums in the future, and how do you see how do you compose the new albums in a way that they always delivers a fresh thing?
You know, between us and the band, we have so much creativity, you know, so it's kind of easy because everyone writes music, and like for next album, maybe I don't like feel like writing. That's not gonna happen probably, but you know, someone has more of a downer, and then other people step in, you know, to write more music. I mean, I think we have this kind of filter in the band that we feel that we really want to do what we do, you know, and I think we have the recipe now to keep on doing that, you know, and keep on doing our thing. And as long as we stay true to that, I think we can be around for many years, you know, to come.
Okay. So talking about other topics, what is the part of being a musician that you like most? Composing an album, recording, or performing live?
At the moment, definitely performing live. Like I'm having fun every time on stage. But then again, I've been in the studio for 2 years, just sitting like this, like recording stuff. So it's like now it's so fresh to be on the road. But I mean, if you've been on the road for 1.5 years, like kind of heavy touring, then you want to just, I want to chill. I want to be in the studio, you know. So it's up and down, and it kind of matches very well. When you've done an album, now all we want to do is just go on tour. Then after I guess after half a year, like 6 months and a year from now, we gotta go into the studio. No more touring, you know. So it's been up and down. So at the moment, it's definitely like releasing the music and go out touring to me.
Okay. So how do you see the rock scene nowadays? I mean, there are a lot of bands like H.E.A.T that are keeping the flame of rock alive. But at the same time, we can see bands like Def Leppard releasing new albums. So do you still time to listen to new bands, or do you prefer the classic one that inspired you?
For the old bands like Def Leppard, and you know, I tend to listen to the old stuff. You know, when Maiden releases a new album, I give it a spin, you know, but I don't think they have released anything good since Brave New World, basically. And like same with Def Leppard, I listened to one of the singles, you know, maybe something like that, but it's like they had their their time. I will probably give it a listen, but I do listen to a lot of new bands and new music, mainly new like power metal stuff. I'm kind of get into, and I listen to like Spotify playlists. I put on the like heavy metal, hard rock, and just see what's there and listen. And maybe sometimes I discover something new and cool that I get into.
Okay. I always consider that rock or metal music is the music of people that may age but keep the spirit young. So I listen to the latest records from classic bands, and after decades, many of them manage to keep the energy. So, but to be realistic, nothing lasts forever. In your opinion, what do you think is going to happen when the most classic bands that can perform at stadiums will be retired? Do you think that there are younger bands that can carry the torch on this aspect?
It's hard. It's a good question for sure, but it's hard to predict. I don't, just because we play music that sound like Def Leppard or stuff, we won't sell out stadiums just because you have to build your own thing, right? And like heavy metal and hard rock music isn't as big as it was in the 80s. But then again, you have other kinds of bands that keep, bands like Ghost, they're like huge now. They sell out stadiums like here in Sweden, like Swedish band. You have bands like Sabaton, they're huge as well here in Europe. But it's not like classic metal, but like it's still hard rock, heavy metal. Nightwish, bands like that's been around since the early 2000s. They sell a lot of tickets and they sell a lot of albums and stream a lot. And you have, I think the power metal, like that branch, or like symphonic melodic metal is more, it's bigger at the moment than like the 80s more AOR melodic rock stuff. But I think that might change as well, like because I can feel some sort of resurgence here in our genre as well. I mean, hopefully we can go up and play bigger places. The old guys have to bring us on tour first.
Yeah.
Def Leppard, bring us on tour so we can see your crowd. No, but we can show ourselves.
Okay. The music industry changed a lot throughout decades, especially for classic bands from the 70s, 80s. So they have seen a huge change. But even for a young band like H.E.A.T, you may experience changes in the last 15 years with the way the digital platforms have become an important way to spread your music. So how has been your experience with digital platforms, and how do you deal with the issue of the fans not listening to full albums like before because they focus more on singles?
Yes, it's not much to deal with, you just kind of have to get with the program, right? I mean, we started H.E.A.T just in a transition when you kind of stopped selling CDs. So when we released the first album, we were actually looking at physical sales. Oh, we sold 10,000 copies in Sweden. That's pretty good, but it was declining. So we haven't really experienced that thing of selling records and actually making money from selling records. Like we have to go on tour these days. But like first of all, it's like you tend to do shorter albums these days, right? So you have 10, 11 songs instead of maybe when we did Freedom Rock, I think we had like 14 tracks. So because it doesn't make sense to release 14, 15 tracks when people listen to 4 of them. So you tend to have shorter albums, which I kind of like as well. It's the same thing as it was like in the 80s. It was like 8, 9 tracks because of space on the vinyls. So it's back to kind of more of the vinyl format. And also that might mean that you have to stay up to date more. You have to release more singles. You do like 3, 4 singles before the album release to have the release dragged out for like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And then you release the album, then you do like a tour on it. So you kind of adapt. And I mean, this is all we know basically. We weren't really around when you sold records and you went out touring to promote the physical sales. Mm-hmm. So this is the world we know.
Okay. So we are very close to this interview, and I will ask you an abstract question because this thing is very abstract. So Do you hear about synesthesia?
What?
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia, no?
Okay, the synesthesia is when a person listen the music, they see colors, they smell taste, okay. So talking about this aspect, so what kind of colors, odors, and tastes that the listeners will find into this force majeure?
I think force majeure is very yellow. It's a yellow album, like yellow and neon, sort of. But the taste, what does it taste like? It tastes like Jack and Coke, maybe. It's all I can think of. That's show for me, like a Jack and Coke. It's showtime. It's really great. But it's funny that you mentioned. I used to have that, like when I saw certain colors when I was a kid, I can like get taste in my mouth. You know, kind of weird, like weird sensation.
Yeah. Well, Jona, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one as I did, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I really enjoyed this new album. It's a great one as usually. Congratulations for that. Perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans that expect so many times to see the hit live, and Metallerium followers?
Thanks for checking this interview out, and hopefully you will like Force Majeure, the new album. And fucking someday we will come to South America and we will bring our fucking A game and we'll have some fun.